Where are your manners? That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt, and I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. Where are your manners? Do you see society degrading because of a lack of civility, of common courtesies? I do. And if you don't, then you must be walking about with blinders on, because really, people are rude. There's always been rude people in the world, but people are just getting ruder and ruder. And it's because people fail to take into consideration others' feelings, others first. It's not that government is supposed to, in some sort of collectivist, Marxist, communist manner, dictate that people consider others first. It's that you, as a human being, as a Christian, as somebody who functions well with others, who plays well with others, you consider other people first. You don't just go about with a self-centered type attitude, doing your own thing, plowing head first through society, through your day-to-day activities. Before I get into all that, I want to quickly mention, if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, the online platform for faith-based podcasts, at washingtontimes.com. Just subscribe to Bold and Blunt there by finding my name hyperlinked on the site. Click on it and sign up for my 3 times a week newsletter. Comes out Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. It contains my commentaries and my Bold and Blunt Tuesday and Thursday podcasts. Or, of course, you can get Bold and Blunt wherever podcasts are offered. Manners and etiquette. They seem such strange topics of conversation for a podcast that is primarily political in nature. But really they're not. Because at the foundation of a society, of a properly running, functioning society, are people who know how to behave in public. They're not thugs. They're not uncivilized. They're not just even selfish and self-centered, caring little for the feelings or needs of others. People are supposed to interact with some sort of standard of behavior, and it's not just because that's the nice thing to do. It's because that's what keeps society less chaotic. And you know this. You know this if you drive. You know this when you drive down a road, when you drive on the highway. Particularly, I would like Maryland drivers to pay attention to this, because I find, just anecdotally, driving in the Northern Virginia area or elsewhere in America, whenever there's a bad driver on the road, I look and it's a Maryland license plate. I gotta say, I'm sorry for my Maryland listeners, but you guys aren't doing a great job when it comes to driving with courtesies. Just look at the roadways, though. You see people darting in and out of traffic. You see people tailgating. You see people straddling the line. So they're basically driving in 2 lanes, taking up 2 lanes, because they're trying to gauge which one is moving faster, which should they pop into. You see people tailgating. You see people angrily tailgating, just tailgating unnecessarily, just to make a point. There will be passing opportunities to both the left and the right, which I know you're not supposed to pass on the right. But if you're already breaking road courtesies and breaking laws by tailgating, passing, at least on the right, is better than tailgating. But you will see people tailgating when they don't have to, just because they are so angry they want to make a point to the driver in front of them that they are angry and they're going to tailgate them. This is ridiculous, right? And it's something that we've been experiencing in America for a very long time, the loss of common courtesy. Have Americans forgotten their manners? ABC News asked in a headline way back in 2003. Another headline, new survey shows Americans believe civility is on the decline. That was in 2016. Americans believe civility is on the decline. Another headline apparently reporting on the same survey, this one from Science Daily. April 22nd, 2016, a survey from NORC at the University of Chicago. Here is the summary. A recent survey finds that 74% of Americans think manners and behavior have deteriorated in the United States over the past several decades. A large majority believe that politicians should be held to a higher standard than the general public. The Republican campaign is viewed as rude and disrespectful by nearly twice as many Americans as those who characterize the fight for the Democratic nomination in that way. Well, remember, this poll was conducted at a time when Donald Trump was rising to the political top, and the left absolutely detested Donald Trump, not because so much of his manners, but because he represented America First agendas and viewpoints and policies. And specifically, he represented America First globalist governments, globalist organizations last. And the elites on the left side of things detested that sort of politicking. So out come the surveys that put to the top of American voters' minds about the need for etiquette and manners. And then, of course, the natural draw is to the face of Donald Trump to show how his then Twitter feed was just filled with unmannerly, discourteous type of tweets and so forth, and that his speech, his rhetoric, was peppered with phrases that were deemed less than etiquette appropriate by the far leftists who decided to become, all of a sudden, out of the blue, the bearers of all things etiquette. Well, let's remember that there are other polls in earlier times that showed that when it came to dropping the F-bomb in public and cursing and using swear words, both publicly and privately, that Democrats were largely the ones who were known for doing that because they decided, again, the surveyors back then decided that it represented higher intelligence to drop F-bombs in public. So you have to look at who are conducting the surveys here. But by and large, the idea that Americans believing civility was dwindling in America, that's the theme. And whether you chalk it up to Republican Party influences or Democratic Party influence doesn't matter. The theme holds true. The fact is, America is growing more and more and more discourteous as the years go by. And it's interesting that this isn't just about please and thank you and holding the door for somebody who comes behind you. It's about the breakdown of society. Because once you take out those small shows of civility, it just opens the door for more and more rude behaviors to enter everyday society. And look, let's just leap forward to the bigger point here. In America, America was founded on a principle of limited government, right? Where individuals get their rights from God, that formal government is only there to preserve and protect those already inherent God-given rights. And once we move away from that gift that founding fathers laid for us, it opens the door to bigger and bigger and bigger government coming in and controlling human activities and seizing, stealing individual rights and moving the country, at least insofar as the government structure goes, into a more collectivist system or model or structure. And look, the part that deals with manners in that equation, in that God-given individual liberties equation, is that founding fathers knew that a limited government could only last so long as the people were moral and virtuous. And part of that morality and virtue comes from the seeming simple things in life, the common courtesies, the everyday manners, the standard of behavior for society called etiquette. Break down etiquette and society degrades, the culture degrades, ultimately the political system degrades. The communities that make up society degrade. And pretty soon you have a country that is rude, thuggish, leading into chaos, even violence. I have with me today an etiquette expert. Her name is Kelley Yates. She just published her first book, The Art of a Feminine Lady. She runs the consulting company Lady Etiquette, LLC, in Florida, and she has served clients that include children to Barack Obama. So she has an international presence when it comes to helping people maintain societal standards of proper etiquette and manners and courtesies. And one of her key issues right now is fighting back against this LGBTQ agenda and culture that tells little boys they can become little girls simply by changing their pronouns or changing the way they dress. She finds that damaging, of course, to the children, to society in general, but also that many of these so-called etiquette experts, which aren't so much experts, but influencers, as she calls them, many of these etiquette influencers that we read daily in newspapers or online or in books, they're actually pushing this LGBTQ agenda, and it's very dangerous indeed. Kelley Yates, I want to thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I was so excited to have the opportunity to speak with a real live etiquette expert, which is you. And I just wanted to open our chat with sort of a generic question. Etiquette has received a bad rap in recent years. Can you kind of outline what etiquette is and maybe even more importantly, what etiquette is not?
Yes, absolutely. Well, a lot of people have a misconceived idea that etiquette's all about dining, for example, dining manners. And it's so much more than that. Etiquette affects our whole life, on a day-to-day basis, whether we're in the street, street deportment, in a restaurant, in an interview. It affects us everywhere. We could be at home, how we interact with our family, our friends, if we're on a date. Etiquette's everywhere. People don't realise that. And a lot of people think that etiquette is being stuck up, being a snob.
Right.
And it's not about that at all. It's all about giving you confidence in any social setting. That's the heart and soul of etiquette. And it's rules. A lot of people don't realise that. It's rules to follow. So the rules of polite behaviour, the code of polite behaviour. And if everybody didn't follow these rules, we would have animalistic behaviour, we would have anarchy, and it would be chaotic. The world would be, chaotic.
And it's interesting because if you're a parent and you have children and you're trying to teach them manners growing up, a lot of times children buck that system. They don't want to learn manners, but most parents also know of grown children that their adult children appreciate knowing manners and etiquette because it helps them in social situations how to act. It takes away their nerves and their anxieties.
Yes, absolutely. That's what it's all about. In fact, I have a class at the moment I'm teaching once a week to children. They're around age 12. And they were quite apprehensive because their parents, made them go.
Right.
But as soon as they came, they started enjoying it, and was looking forward to the next class. Because I make my classes fun and I use humour. I show what not to do and what to do in
And we could all use that, because I don't think there's an individual in the United States, or actually even in the world, who hasn't gone to a formal dining situation and maybe been a bit confused about which spoon or which fork to use. So knowing that gives you not just self-esteem, but a little sense of power.
Yes, it does. It's very empowering. And it lowers stress levels.
Yes.
Like you said, Cheryl, it can cause anxiety when you don't know which fork to use. And when you know all these social skills, it puts people at ease.
And you have just written this book, The Art of a Feminine Lady, which I just bought 5 minutes before we got on this phone call. I just purchased it. Well, it sounds fabulous. And I've been a long time curious reader of etiquette and so forth anyhow. But your title, The Art of a Feminine Lady, it must put you right in the targets of the radical feminists out there. They probably don't even go past reading the title of your book before they're hating on you.
Yes, they don't like me at all, Cheryl. That's okay, because I don't like them. Margaret Thatcher, said once that feminism was poison. And she said she hated feminism, and feminism hates her. And remember, she was our first female prime minister, and in Britain, and she ran 3 consecutive terms. And she realised back then, how negative feminism is in our culture, and that it doesn't empower women at all. In fact, it weakens us, it demeans us, and it emasculates men.
And what's taking place in the culture right now? I know that you have some insights into what's going on with all the LGBTQ agenda, and boys thinking they can become girls simply by changing their pronouns and vice versa. Speak to that and what that does to harm the individuals who play along with that agenda.
Well, I'm very concerned about it, Cheryl, because as an etiquette coach, I've seen how to be quite frank, a lot of people don't realise this, but the leading etiquette experts that are being promoted by the mainstream liberal media, they are all progressive liberal feminists. And they are indoctrinating this LGBTQ trans woke ideology upon society. And it has nothing to do with etiquette at all. And they are confusing our gender roles. They are confusing society. And our children are at the most risk by taking their confidence away. For example, they're teaching, of course, no ladies first. That it's, the basic etiquette rule of a chivalrous demeanour is for a gentleman to pull the chair. It's quite simple. Pull the chair for the lady. Help the lady with her jacket. And now they're saying, oh no, anybody can do that. It's not just the man. And this leads to confusion.
Yes.
They are also saying a basic etiquette rule is whoever asks the person out on the date is the host.
Right.
And the host, etiquette dictates, is the person that should pay for the dinner. It's basic etiquette. But now they're saying, oh no, it's... you should still offer to pay. The woman should still offer to pay. And it's absolutely ridiculous. They're just making stuff up. It's made up woke nonsense because they cannot hide what they are. They're radical feminists. Feminism has always been radical, in my opinion. You might disagree with me, but it's always been radical in the last, I would say, 40 years.
I do not disagree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And
yes, well, I've been studying it, and it's having a big impact in our culture. And a lot of people don't realize how important it is. Our culture is in great danger.
It is.
We're in great danger of losing our identity.
Exactly, because when the culture degrades, it creates chaos, which opens the door for big government to come in. So it doesn't just degrade the culture, it degrades the political system as well.
Absolutely, but it's shocking what's going on, especially when you see it on social media. There's so much ugliness out there. It's so superficial. And the main issue I have, the main concern I have an issue with is the fact that they are indoctrinating people with this transgender ideology that is ripping people's confidence away. And they are teaching the gender pronouns. And that is a huge etiquette faux pas. You don't teach people to introduce somebody as, not a man or a woman. I mean, that is very rude to push your sexual identity upon somebody. Not acceptable.
And
they're making up names. For example, instead of Mr. and Mrs., they've got this title called MX. And they are teaching this. And it is a threat to our society because they have, not only are they being promoted by the mainstream media, but they have train-the-trainer programs, you see.
Yes.
So they're creating a whole army of people to think this way, and they're writing books.
Right.
And some of them do it in a very creepy way, just like Disney. How they creep that queer agenda.
Yes.
Into Disney. It's just the same. I've seen it.
And you're finding that even the so-called experts on etiquette and manners nowadays, the advice columnists, the Emily Posts and so forth that we turn to in the newspapers to, for interesting items about how to deal with certain etiquette issues that pop in modern life, you're finding that this agenda has seeped into their advice columns as well.
Yes, Emily Post would be turning over in her grave right now. It's absolutely disgraceful. I was so sick when I saw her. You go on their website, you will see they are teaching gender pronouns.
Wow.
And it's perverting society. It has nothing to do with etiquette. It's demeaning. And people should not be sexualized, and especially our children. And by the way, these people are influencers. They're all over social media. They're on TikTok. And I think it's disgraceful what they're doing. It's got William Hanson. He brands himself as Britain's leading etiquette coach, and his partner, Micah Myers, in New York. And they have that transgender woke ideology that they are preaching. And it's not etiquette. It's made up woke nonsense.
It's a lie. And it's
a lie.
It's
yes,
trying to
it's
force... It's trying to force all of society to participate in this lie that really only a slim minority of people want to push forward anyhow. I think it's 1%, 2% of people fall into the actual LGBTQ category. So if...
It was, but I have to just mention there, that gave me a little comfort when I saw that number, but it's changing because of what's happening.
It's normalizing. Yep.
These etiquette so-called experts are normalizing it. They're normalizing it everywhere with all these woke companies. And there are people that are, decent people, like you and I and your listeners that are standing up against it. And, we're getting, our culture is being assaulted. When we stand up against it, we're the ones that are told off. We're the ones that, can risk going to prison for not saying, or arrested for not giving into this falsehood. By announcing their name, their pronoun rather.
Right.
It's disgusting. It really upsets me. I think you can tell by my voice.
Of course.
I'm very upset about it.
Well, I think
I see what's happening in society.
All sane people are similarly upset by this because it's crumbling and crippling society from within. And just from an etiquette standpoint, if you are in a situation and somebody who is a female introduces herself as a male and then sort of insists that you play along with that lie, from an etiquette standpoint, how do you deal with that?
Yes, you have to nip it in the bud right away.
Right.
And you just call them by their name and you don't play into it. I'll tell you a quick story that happened to me in Seattle. Last time I went on a trip to Seattle. I don't know if you go there much.
No.
It's like the Twilight Zone.
I stay away.
Well, we went into a restaurant with my family, and my mother-in-law was looking at the menu, and she mentioned to the waitress, she referred to the waitress, she said, "Oh, she recommended this." And the waitress shouted out, "I'm not a she, I'm a they."
Oh, wow.
And we were so taken back. And because I've got a background in hospitality. And the number one rule is you never talk down to a guest. A lot of this is common sense, but, people would lose their jobs, in the industry that I was working in, if they ever spoke down to a guest and demeaned a guest and forced this sexuality onto, this unfounded ideology onto a guest, for that matter. But I just looked at her, and this was the first time in my life that I'd ever come across somebody that was claiming to be non-binary, a they. And I just said, "What is your name?" And she said, "My name is Moth." And we got talking to her some more, and we found out she'd named herself Moth because a moth is hard to identify, the sex.
Oh, jeez.
That's how backward these people are. And they have badges at the schools in Seattle they're giving out to the children, the pronoun badges. But the fact that the manager at the restaurant allowed that, I was so sick. And it was my first experience, so I didn't really handle it that well. What I should have done, in retrospect, was leave. Just leave immediately. But we stayed and we had our meal. And she was wearing, by the way, a they-them badge. Instead of a name badge, it was they-them.
Oh, jeez.
But upon leaving, I did say to the manager, I called him aside, tried to do it discreetly, and I just said, "I don't care if your waitress identifies as a cucumber, but I don't expect, to be treated like that. We just want to know her name. She should be wearing a name badge. That's what's professional in hospitality, not a pronoun badge announcing her sexuality."
Right.
What sexual lifestyle she identifies with. But yes, I was in shock, and that was my first experience. And then right after that, I went to England on a trip, and something funny happened there. We were walking through the tube station, my mother and I, and all of a sudden, we came across all these posters that were put up by Sadiq Khan, the really, progressive liberal mayor of London. And it was all endorsed by Sadiq Khan, and it was all these queer people announcing their pronouns, and demanding you call them by their pronouns.
Wow.
And they were really weird photos, they were all that queer, the queer people.
Right.
And this was along the tube station, right outside the Houses of Parliament, where all the world leaders make, where all the British leaders make the decisions. In England, and I thought, how rich is that? How ironic!
Wow.
And it haunted me. And then when I was over there, they had announced on British Airways that they were no longer going to call us ladies and gentlemen. And all these things that are happening. It's
right.
It's really sickening. And I know I'm not the only one. A lot of people are upset. But back to the feminist, progressive, liberal etiquette influencers. I won't call them etiquette experts because they're not. They're etiquette influencers that are progressive, liberal feminists. So they're teaching this no ladies first and don't mention lady. And they're shaming, our sex. And there's no shame in lady. A lot of people forget this because lady is not. It's not just our gender. It's a title. And we work very hard for that title. And I like to be called a lady, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not a label of weakness or it's there's nothing derogatory about it. I think it's complimentary.
Yes, and it's never been weakness with a gentleman pulling the chair or opening the door for us.
No.
It's about being pampered.
Yeah, it's classy, right?
Chivalrous demeanour, it's classy.
Yes.
Yes, and it's standards that have stood the test of time. That's what I teach, by the way. None of this made up woke nonsense.
And when did you?
I'm trying to protect them.
I know we've gone over a bit on the time, so let me just finish with this. And
Yes.
if you'd like to, I would love to have you back again because there's so much else that I wanted to discuss with you. If you'd come back on my show, I have another 15 minutes that we could fill, I'm sure. But I wanted to.
Absolutely, anytime.
I wanted to finish with this question. When did you see the change happen? Because in America, it seemed to me like manners outside of the 60s, when things just went haywire, manners were part and parcel of culture. It was just something that was expected and the norm. But lately, was it because of social media? Was it because of the political world? When did you see the shift?
Oh, yes, definitely social media. People are spending far too long on social media, so they find it very hard to look people in the eye and have a conversation. But they still want to look people in the eye, and have a conversation. So that's why etiquette is trending at the moment. If you go on social media, it is starting to come back again. But really, in my eyes, it never went out of fashion.
Yeah.
Lots smart, sophisticated people know the importance of it. And I'm not talking about, high society. There can be sophisticated people that live, in a very modest home that understand it. And I do get some of those people coming to me. It's amazing. I get all kinds of people from, tattoo artists to Fortune 500, CEO. But it appeals to, a wide range of people. But yes, social media is a big downfall, without a doubt. And it's disgusting how they are also, they have in the bio on social media, Instagram, for example, pronouns. They're normalizing it for all these young people, and they won't allow you to put a proper honorific title in there. Wow. That's what we should be using, an honorific title, Mr., Mrs., and Miss. And by the way, the Ms. title, that came from two radical feminists.
Yes.
That story?
Tell it, because I do know it, but I think it would be very interesting.
Yes, Sheila Michaels and Gloria Steinem. It was first seen on a Marxist magazine by Sheila Michaels in the early 60s. And she was a big liberal activist, human rights activist, like a lot of them are. And she had never seen a marriage that she wanted to emulate. And she went on radio station in New York and declared this new title and said women should not have to reveal that they are married. But it was all an attack against the constitution of marriage.
Right.
First, they shamed us for being married. And there's no shame in being single, for that matter. But they shame it. And now they're shaming our God-given sex.
Yeah,
it's disgusting what's going on.
It's moved into the area of abusive to children, especially when you look at some of the medical surgeries that these nutcases want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's...
Yes, well, that's what they're doing with the pronouns. They're encouraging people to question their sex, so they start... you've got young girls binding their breasts, taking puberty blockers. How is this allowed in a civilized country? And then they go on to these therapists who say, oh, yes, a lot of these therapists are, just in it for the money. Yes, there are some good therapists that are standing up against it. But unfortunately, there's some bad people out there with no morals, and they just see the dollar sign, and they say, yes, come back and see me next week. We can talk about you being a boy. And then they pass them on to the butchers and mutilate their bodies.
It's horrible.
It's very sad. And by the way, Gloria Steinem, she named her magazine Ms. after hearing Sheila Michaels on the radio. And that's how that became a trend, with the feminists. They thought it was all about empowerment, but it wasn't. It was about shaming us for being married or single, for that matter. And now they're trying to teach these liberal feminist activists who are claimed to be leading etiquette experts. They are teaching all the wrong things. For example, Miss, they say is for under 18-year-olds, the Miss title. And that's absolute nonsense. Miss as if you're not married.
Right. Right.
Liz was never accepted. The Ms. was never accepted, universally. For example, the Queen never accepted it. She refused to use the Ms. title on paper or verbally. And Margaret Thatcher never used it either. They knew it was a feminist tactic.
It's astonishing how fast society can break down just by mocking and removing just rules, simple etiquette rules. And that's where we are right now, not just in America, but in other countries as well. And you've really got your pulse on this. Kelley Yates, author of The Art of a Feminine Lady. And you also are the founder of Lady Etiquette LLC in Florida. So is there a website for that?
Yes, it's ladyetiquette.com. And I'm on Instagram, the Lady Etiquette and Getter. But my handles are on the website, ladyetiquette.com.
Okay. Well, I hope people check out your website. And like I said, I just ordered your book before we spoke, and I can't wait to read it. And I can't wait for you to come back. You're such a fascinating guest. Thank you so much for being on Bold and Blunt.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
The website, again, is ladyetiquette.com. The book is The Art of a Feminine Lady. Check out both. And if your manners are lacking, shame on you. Maybe you need a little bit of a brush up before you head out to that formal occasion. I want to thank you for listening. I want to remind you, if you like Bold and Blunt, you can get Bold and Blunt at edify.app, at washingtontimes.com, or again, wherever podcasts are offered. And if you already subscribe or listen regularly to Bold and Blunt, thank you. I really appreciate the support. Tune in next time, and in the meanwhile, stay blunt, stay bold.